get in there.
How are you today? Good. We purchased 2016 Ford Explorer from there.
Tyson, your mic is on.
That's Michael.
No, that's Michael. They sound alike. Okay.
I've muted him.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And our first item is approval of the agenda. I have a motion moved by Tom and seconded by Bill that the agenda for the regular council meeting of August the 11th, 2020 be approved as amended.
Yes.
The amendments.
Yeah, under section 9A delegations, remove Marlene Bertram. She will not be attending the virtual meeting. And under 12E, bylaws, we add the bylaw for the Williams Lane. The actual bylaw was not in there, but it was in the report.
Okay. Any questions or comments on those amendments?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, Cindy's having problems getting into the meeting. Can anybody help her?
Cindy, can you help Cindy?
I don't know what her issues are. I'll send her an email and find out.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as amended? Let me see your hands. Is there anyone opposed? Motion's carried. Is there any disclosure, pecuniary interest, and general nature thereof of any item on tonight's agenda by any member of council? Hearing none, we'll note that. I have a motion moved by Bill and seconded by Tom that the minutes of the regular council meeting held July 14th, 2020 be approved as presented. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Elwin, if you oppose, I need to hear you say yes or no, okay?
And Madam Mayor, because Victor's video isn't on, we'll need him to verbalize as well.
Okay.
I'm getting a note saying there's low bandwidth with his profile.
Okay, so Victor and Elwin, are you saying yes to this motion?
Yes.
Elwin?
Yes, yes.
Okay, carried. Okay, mayor's remarks. I'm going to pass over those because we have a very heavy agenda. And just a thank you to everyone who's doing their very best to stay safe and wear their masks and cooperate to keep COVID-19 away from our community. Okay, deferred items, there are none. Staff reports, development services is our first one. And that would be Andy. I have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Elwin that council received the construction details July 2020 report as prepared by the manager of development services CBO for information. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
In favor?
Can see you now, Victor.
Okay.
Elwin?
Yes.
Okay, motion's carried.
Madam Mayor, can we pause just for a moment? Cindy
Sure.
Kelsey has joined us. Cindy, can you hear us?
Cindy's muted by what I see.
There, Cindy, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And there's
All
a
right,
calling user 3. Can that person identify themselves?
Might be Bettina Henkelman.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, carry on, Madam Mayor.
That's okay. That's okay. All right. Our next is the Public Works Activity Report. I have a motion moved by Elwin and seconded by Victor that council received the Public Works Activity Report as prepared by the Public Works Manager dated August the 11th, 2020 for information. Any discussion, questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, motion's carried. Cindy, can you say yes or no to that?
I say yes. Are we not doing it the way we used to do it?
Well, I can see everybody now except the people calling in, so.
I don't
Okay.
even see my, where my stuff is. It hasn't even come up yet.
Now, who is that?
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, hi, it's Blair Sheridan.
Okay, do you want to just mute yourself?
Okay, sorry, I thought I was on mute.
No. Okay, so that motion is carried. Maybe we will go back to the other way, we'll assume it's everybody's in support unless you say that you're not. I think that's a little smoother. All right, Public Works replacement of truck 22. Moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Tom Dewey. Whereas the Public Works Manager has prepared a report outlining 3 options for the replacement of truck number 22. And whereas mechanics have suggested that we upgrade to a newer truck due to the nature of the maintenance repairs that have been spent up to this point, as well as the unknown costs in the future. And whereas the Public Works Manager has considered the options along with the mechanic's suggestion and is recommending that we purchase a new truck to replace truck number 22. Now therefore be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the Public Works Manager to purchase a new truck and issue a request for quotation as soon as possible. Discussion on the motion?
Madam Mayor, Bill here.
Victor first and then Bill.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Tyson. Is the truck that we are replacing, is that a diesel?
It's a F350 diesel. Sorry, F550 regular cab diesel.
Okay, so are most of these trucks diesel trucks?
Truck number 22 that we're replacing is a diesel, but we want to replace it with a gasoline motor.
Okay, so just in my experience as a school bus driver, the small vans that we used to drive at first, there was a tendency to have them as diesels, but they found out that the maintenance costs were higher than the gasoline engines, even though the engine would not last as long as a diesel. And so now the trend is back to the gasoline. So I support getting the gasoline.
Bill McDonald.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to Tyson. Tyson, it looks like my reading is that you have to spend $16,000 on the truck that we own to make it worthy of the road. What kind of money are we going to have to invest in it if we get trade-in value when you trade that truck in on the new one?
Through you, Madam Mayor, even when we spend the $16,000 or closer to $17,000 to get the motor back in working condition, it's still an older truck that's getting closer to surplus. To get any kind of a trade-in value at all, I'm estimating it probably another few thousand on top of that in body work to safety it, to get it re-safetied. Because right now, currently would not need to get re-safetied to get back on the road. It just needs a motor.
Follow up, Madam Mayor. Is that a 6-liter diesel? Do you know, Tyson?
It's a 6.7 diesel.
Okay. All right. I had experience with the 6-liter and they're terrible motor. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay,
Your Worship, Tom here.
go ahead, Tom.
I would just like to say something. I'm going to support this, but I just want to say something that somewhere along the line, I don't think we were very smart about spending all that money going into repairs. I spent $26,000 in 2017 and 18, along with $21,000 in 2015. And I fully support what Tyson's doing now, and we should have been talking about this before, because I don't think to me, it's sometimes we need to step back and reassess the situation rather than just barrel into taking the easy road out. And I think Tyson's doing the right thing, because it doesn't make sense when we spend all this money on this truck over the years. So I fully support it.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Also, thank you, Tom, for the support, but I'll also add that if you look into what each repair was, a lot of them is diesel engine components and the diesel exhaust components. So, yeah, I think it's the right choice.
Okay, good stuff. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, is there anyone voting no to the motion to purchase this truck to replace 22? Hearing none, motion's carried. Okay, we have a motion by Tom and Cindy. Whereas the request for proposal, Public Works 2020-05 was released on July 21st, 2020 and closed on August 5th, 2020 for bridge repair services, Forest Lake Road, as described in the document. And whereas the Public Works Manager has reviewed all submissions and is recommending we award the contract to Norbrook Contracting Limited. Now therefore be it resolved that Council award Norbrook Contracting Limited as the successful bidder in the amount of $24,500 excluding HST, and further that the Public Works Manager be authorized to issue a purchase order for the work. Discussion?
It's Tom here, Your Worship. The only thing I'd like to ask Tyson is there's quite a difference in the quotes here. I just wonder what is Northbrook not doing that Cranes would have done to do this job. Something seems to be a little bit off center here.
Or the one company really didn't want the work.
Well, because I assume we had an engineer on this project when the bridge was put in just a few years ago. So and if they said it was okay, I'm surprised that we now have to go to this repair.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I agree, Tom. The two prices, it's unordinary for there to be that big of a gap. The one price from the hire contractor, I do agree with Fran a little bit. I think that does reflect the busyness of their construction season already, but also they definitely went above and beyond in their proposal, and I think they had some work in there that was actually unnecessary. Now, what I did was I did negotiate with, as you can see, I negotiated with the low bidder to make sure that he covered off all of the check marks that I needed, and it's a newer company. Now I've checked with other municipalities and other companies, and they've got a good rapport so far. We're gonna give them a try, and I think it's worth the risk. You could do almost 3 of their repairs to the other contractors' 1. So that seems like worth the risk to me.
All right.
Our sound is going a little wonky there. Okay, Bill?
Yes, Tyson, am I wrong in remembering that we have done work on on this particular bridge most recently and within the last year or so, or year and a half? If so, was there no warranty included in that work at the time of completion? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, as you know, the original warranty had expired, and when the contractor did that repair, I don't think it was done I'm not sure if it was done as an RFP or not, but they didn't cover what was required. That was a extreme Band-Aid situation, and they didn't do a proper repair on it. So by monitoring this contractor to make sure that they're doing it up to our standards, we expect much better results, and we will have a warranty on this product.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Tyson.
Very
Madam
good.
Mayor, it's Brent. Just
Yes,
a quick follow-up. The first question I had was pretty much dealt with by Bill and Tom with regard to why we're having to deal with this so quickly after the last repair. But what I would like to know is what we think the turnaround time will be for this project. I know that you're going to be, if it's approved, we're going to be contacting them fairly soon. But do we have a sense in ballpark in terms of how many weeks / months it'll be? And, just the extent of any shutdown on Fourth Lake Road in order to facilitate the traffic?
Through you, Madam Mayor, great question, Brent. Construction won't impact traffic. The only thing it may do is slow it down with a one-lane closure, just for vehicles being parked on the edge, reaching over the embankment. As for schedule, they have submitted a schedule, and I don't know the exact date, but the completion was inside September, so we stay really far away from any risk of freeze up. So there'll be no layover into another season, Brent.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried. Okay, we have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Brent. That council received the report regarding the replacement of 2 3/4-ton trucks as prepared by the Public Works Manager. And whereas the Public Works Manager has considered 2 options for the purchase of 2 3/4-ton trucks, which are outlined in the report. And whereas it is advisable to go with option 2 and tender for the 2 trucks this fall with delivery in 2021. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the Public Works Manager to purchase 2 3/4-ton trucks for delivery in 2021 and to issue a request for tender this fall. Discussion? Bill?
I just want to pass on a comment to Tyson. I think it is advisable we're moving in this direction, do it as soon as possible, because I was at a dealership getting some repairs on my truck, and they were telling me that they're having a real problem getting any trucks. Where they normally have upwards of 50 to 100 on their lot, they had 6 new vehicles, and supply was a major issue. So that's just a comment to follow up on my support for this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'm in support of Tyson's recommendation of going into option 2.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, is there anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried. We have a motion moved by Nikki Gowdy and seconded by Brent Cameron. Whereas part of Nordic Road was dedicated to the municipality upon the registration of subdivision plan 13M98, and part was established as public highway pursuant to bylaw 2014-28, but not assumed for maintenance. And whereas the developer of the subdivision has satisfied the terms and conditions of the subdivision agreement, and it is now appropriate to assume the full extent of Nordic Road as part of the municipality's road network. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council pass a bylaw later in the meeting to assume Nordic Road and direct staff to register said bylaw on title. Any discussion?
I have a question, Your Worship. It's Tom.
Go ahead, Tom.
Tyson, I was wondering, looking at the map, why we're not assuming the road up to the township right away. We seem to stop on the just a little bit inside that last lot, and I know that there's a right of way across there into another property to the east, and I don't know why we don't assume it up to the right of way. Is there a reason for that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I will look into make sure that that map is accurate. I'm under the assumption we already maintain the entire road. So right. That's a great point. I didn't actually notice that. We'll make sure that it could be just as simple as Frontenac maps wasn't drawn perfectly for this presentation. So great question for me to follow up on.
Thanks, Tyson.
And I
Madam
think
Mayor, I
that,
may be able to shed some light on that as well. There is a block, I think it's block 27, that goes from the turning circle to the unopened road allowance, and that is not a municipal road. There's a license agreement for access to another lot there. I don't believe it's to be assumed as a public road.
no, and I think you're correct, Cindy. I was just going to mention that it's not. It's part of that block.
Okay.
But if memory serves me correctly, the owner on the east side there, we agreed to put the right of way across that, across the township right of way to their property. So it would make sense that we assumed it up to the right of way.
No, I think it's just a license agreement, Tom.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, we're going to lose Tyson at this point?
Yeah,
Well, no, I think I'm going to stick around. I'll stick around.
I just would, if I may put a request into Tyson, I had a little bit of discussion, but I haven't seen it on the agenda. I would like to see a report from Tyson in regard to our change in our recycling destinations as to how that's actually benefiting the municipality one way or the other. Maybe sometime in the future we could have that report to council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor McDonald, you are off the topic of the motion, which is Nordic Road. So let's go back to Nordic Road.
I apologize.
You should apologize. All right, back to the motion. Is there any more questions on the Nordic Road motion? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried.
Now I'll apologize.
Okay, apology accepted. If I had a hammer, I would have made you stop quicker. All right, now we are at Fire and Emergency Services. And thank you, Tyson. We have a motion moved by Brent and seconded by Nikki that council receive the CFFR activity report as prepared by the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief for information. Any questions or comments on the report for Jamie?
Just one, Madam Mayor, it's Brent.
Go ahead, Brent.
I'm not looking for a specific number, but I'm just wondering if Jamie, you could sort of touch on where we're at year over year. It doesn't have to be a precise number, but just generally, are we up over last year? Are we slightly down, or are we running fairly current?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Cameron, we're a little above what we were last year, but we are in line with 2018, and that seems to be the way our curves go. If we look year to year, is we have a busy year, it dies off. Then we have another busy year and it dies off. So we're pretty much in line with the way the curve goes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
For you, Madam Mayor.
Nikki, go ahead.
Chief Riddell, I know I keep droning on about this. I noticed in the accounts payable, we were still paying bills at some gas stations. The last time we spoke, you said that we were pretty on board to get the card lock system going. Has it started, or if you could just...
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Councillor Gowdy, we have switched over. It's probably just the catch up of the months and the overlaps of where you're seeing the payment to the fuel stations. So hopefully going forward, it'll be all through the fuel system through the township.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, is anyone voting no to this motion? Motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Elwyn Burke, seconded by Nikki Gowdy. Whereas the municipality is required to have an emergency response plan in place, and that the current plan was last updated in 2017 and requires updating. Therefore, who's moving papers? Now, therefore, be it resolved that council accept the revised plan as recommended by the acting manager of emergency services fire chief, and further that council pass a bylaw later in the meeting to adopt the new plan. Discussion, this is a document that's been needing review for a couple of years now, but it's a lot of work. Questions or comments? Okay.
Just a quick one. And again, I don't think we need too much of an elaborate answer, but I'm just wondering if Chief Riddell could touch on the main changes between this version and the 2017 version. And probably the main reasons why we had to update it in the first place.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Cameron, the main changes to the plan were the bringing the definitions of all the roles of all the members of the committee. We adjusted the roles of the CAO clerk and the CEMC so that during an emergency, the previous plan, everything was on the CAO. So we, as we work through our current state of emergency, that's where we seen where, because it's an administrative and primarily, and our CAO was tied up with a lot of the administrative part of it and getting the information from the health unit and rolling it out. As CMAC, I was able to move in and take on some of the responsibilities as far as the reporting and keeping the members updated. So we adjusted it so that we had the flexibility within the plan that Kathy and I are able to juggle that, because the next time it could be that I'm out in the field and I can't be at the table, so Kathy would assume that role. And the other changes were just the updates of all the staff, because of the changeovers that we've had and the new employees that we have. We've updated that with all their contact information, as well as contact information for area businesses and contractors.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, is there anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried. Motion moved by Victor and seconded by Elwin that council receive the update from the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief / CEMC on the municipality's response to COVID-19 for information. We thought it was time that a report should come to council, since on the calls to Dr. Moore and the other partners, being the city, LNA, and all of the lower tiers, we agreed to keep the state of emergency in place until the second or third week of September, after school goes back and we see what's happening there. Questions or comments for Jamie?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have a couple of questions, please.
Sure, go ahead, Nikki.
Great report, Chief, really good report. My questions are, you had said that the OSO hall was a little too small to get a social distancing in place and to be allowed the public back in. Is there a plan to try and make the hall feasible to get us to meet together, so that we can have the public back in place? And also, and along the same line, we have put money aside to build a new council chamber. Will this change what our council chamber will possibly have to look like due to social distancing in the future? And do you have a plan for that? My other question is, what is the plan to get our public buildings back up and going? Other townships have plans in place for September. Other libraries have opened their buildings to the public. Ours are still closed. Could you kind of give us some direction on that, please, and thank you.
If you want me to answer a couple of questions.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the first question, with regards to the OSO hall and the numbers, we're waiting for Andy to give us the new number for inside the building, but we know the number will be lower. So to be able to hold a council meeting under the previous numbers or the current numbers, it would be very challenging, as well as the introducing public into a meeting and would require everyone in the room to don masks, and that was another contributing factor to when we were looking at all the reasons why to keep the declaration in place is so that we could continue with the virtual meetings and until such time that we can move back into the OSO hall. As for your second question and reopening and the size of the facilities, I think we're early in the pre-planning for we have the layout for the renovations, and that's something that we will have to look at is the size of our council chambers sufficient, and now's the time to look at that and address that, but that'll be something that will staff will have to go back and look at.
Kathy, did you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I think that, and certainly Councillor Gowdy's questions, in regards to, yes, Dr. Moore, and then most of our meetings on the Mondays, that came out that, and I know North Frontenac had asked the question specifically of Dr. Moore in regards to council's meeting back in open session, like into the council chambers. Because our council meetings are open to the public, and you never know when there's going to be a public in attendance, besides your delegations. And the requirement is that everyone would have to be masked. That means all staff, all council, as well as the public. So I think that's a little bit of a concern at this point as to how we want to move forward. And that's something that we can certainly further discuss, certainly with council. The other question is the cleaning. We would have to make sure the cleaning, you cannot get the 6-foot distance, certainly for people going into the washroom for one thing. So we would have to be very careful in regards to that, and it would cost us more money in regards to cleaning. It's not something that cannot happen. It's just that that's right. Andy's looking at the proposal as to how we can go forward. So that's the reason why we're not really meeting at this time, getting ready for council meetings, but that can certainly happen very, in the future. And I think some things are going to wait until we hear from Dr. Moore a little further once school opens up in September as to moving forward with, starting to meet in council, certainly in the halls. With respect to all our other facilities, the playground equipment, playgrounds are open, ball fields are open. We did find out with public health, they did a sort of like a webinar for all the municipalities that, for instance, the playground equipment does not need to be, it needs not to be cleaned because it's out in the open, it's out with the ultraviolet light, so it didn't need to be. With respect to, yes, the community hall, and Jamie's right, Andy is working out how we're going to move forward from here, because I think some of the ideas is that we may only be able to have one renter at a time because we'd have to have it cleaned as well. It has to be cleaned certainly in between each of the groups that are going to rent it. The other thing is in some of the halls, and I know Kennebec is used exclusively with the seniors group. The other item is buffet. You cannot have any kind of buffet meal. So, I mean, things like the Lions Club uses for their breakfasts. Kennebec, for instance, probably the seniors have lunches, and that's a no-no at this point under the public health. So it's just taking us a little while, but we are proceeding and we are working towards it. And we're actually doing it in consultation with the other townships within the KFLMA.
And just to add,
explain
the library, Kathy, do you want to touch on that?
Oh, sure. On the library, with the library, they are planning, both Andy and I spoke with Mark Carter this morning. They are planning to open next week. They are looking at the Charlotte Lake one, at least because they're open Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we said, well, our cleaner cleans the office, both down there in the washrooms as well, because it's busy with cleaning of that on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings. So we're just going to have to make sure that it's definitely clean, but they're willing to work with us. They are speaking about their Friday opening to have it as curbside. And then on the Saturday, we'd have to make sure we have it all cleaned, maybe Friday night before we leave. So Andy and I have been talking with them. They're great. They're okay to work together with us. There are other branches because they're only open 4 times, 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours, that I think they're going to call public health themselves directly to see whether or not need any cleaning. The other thing for the Charlotte Lake branch is I asked the question as to how many of the public use the washroom. And they said they were going to check with Sarah. So we just had our update with them today. So I know they're moving forward as of next week.
Good. So things are happening.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, just quickly, it's Brent. I'm asking this question rather non-specifically. I know Jamie still has the floor, but in the context of the report, we're talking about expenses incurred due to COVID being tracked. I'm wondering two things. Number one, any of our contractors, i.e. cleaners, has anyone come back suggesting that they want to revise the contract that we have with them to reflect additional duties with regard to COVID? I don't know if anybody has or not, but there's that. But also, if we're tracking the expenses incurred due to COVID, I'm just wondering if there is going to be in the future, as we move a little further along, an opportunity to receive a report where we've studied the financial impact to our business operations with regard to COVID. If we're paying slightly extra for contractors, or we're seeing a loss of revenue, the kind of things that we would hope that maybe the province would help with us. I'm just wondering when we might be seeing that, maybe later in the year or whenever.
Let's ask Michael to answer that for us. He's been working on it.
I can mention
to Cameron, verbal now is high level summaries is pretty much going to be a wash. The smoking gun will be cleaning costs. So we have savings from the swim program not running. We have some COVID costs right now, and that pretty much is a wash. It depends on the cleaning. We have other non-easily measured costs such as here. And facility rentals, we would potentially, if we didn't open up our halls for the rest of the year, we potentially lose $8,000. It's really not huge in comparison to the municipality I was on a call with today, lost $500,000 in interest revenue from the cash flow being down, and we're nowhere even in the ballpark. So it will have an impact, but it will be, at least fingers crossed, will be pretty much a wash.
Okay, I can answer the question in regards to the contract, especially when we were talking about playgrounds. Our groundskeepers for the, let's see, what area is this on? It was Jeff Hamilton. Anyway, the one that he had received, he would charge us $100 a day to do the extra cleaning. And the one deals with JJ Landscaping Service. It would cost us around $200 per day.
Extra cost.
Extra over and above the contract.
Sorry, just a clarification. You said per day, but I would. Is that per day per event? I'm just wondering if we can be a little more specific in terms of what that might be.
Okay, but this fee, Councillor Cameron, is in regards to just the groundskeeping, you know, going over to do the washroom and the playground equipment, but we know we don't have to do the playground equipment. And I think the reason they came up with the $102 per day, if they had to go over twice a day to clean the washrooms, and that's what the health unit is suggesting. You've got to do it at least twice a day. It's mileage and stuff for them, come back and forth. But no, I don't think we have. I think Terry and Andrew are looking at the contractors with respect to legal cleaners. And I know Duncan was one of them, and I can't remember. I don't think I have a copy of that one right in my file here as to what the extra would be for to do this.
No, but that's a good clarification. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Mayor, may I add a quick point?
Sure, go ahead, Michael.
Okay, so when I was talking to Councillor Cameron earlier, I was thinking more of cost and money spent. Just to mention to Council, the other deferral of interest on all property taxes for the 3 months that we did, and on current tax, first the last month of that would be a total cost of about $45,000 loss in revenue.
So if we don't have to clean extra, we might get through this year in not bad shape, but who knows what the next year is going to bring, in that the cleaning still may have to be twice on all of these items. So it remains to be seen. Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, we'll call the vote.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's Andy
Yes,
here.
Andy, go ahead.
I think with regards to the hall rentals, there shouldn't be too much extra cost for cleaning because their contract is to clean after each event, as long as there isn't more than one event per day. That could become an issue for the cleaning if the hall has more than one booking per day. And for the office there, for the contractor Duncan that's doing the office cleaning, it was going to be $500 per week to clean the bathrooms twice a day, in addition to his contract. But I think we can open the halls without incurring huge cost and extra cleaning.
Okay, I guess the big thing with the halls is someone to make sure that the renters are following the rules, and will it involve bylaw enforcement and all of that sort of thing. So I think once we get protocols in place, if we're looking at mid-September, it'll give us a chance to test it out before the end of the year. So let's aim for that. Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, is there anyone voting no to the motion to accept the report for information? Motion's carried. Good discussion. Okay, we're at Finance and Treasury now. Michael's on the hot seat. Moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Victor Hayes, that council approve the check distribution reports totaling $796,492.01 as prepared by the treasurer. Any discussion on the report? Is there anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Have a motion moved by Cindy Kelsey, seconded by Tom Dewey, that council approve the following apportionments of assessments as recommended by Impact for 2020 as applicable for the following roll numbers. And there's probably 25 or 30 of them on this motion. You've all had them in your package and had a chance to look at them. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, is there anyone voting against the motion? Anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Okay. Motion moved by Tom Dewey and seconded by Cindy Kelsey that council approve the following reduction of assessments pursuant to the Municipal Act. Roll number 1039 010 020 035 30,000 Sorensen Peggy Ann for the period of January to December 31st, 2020, as reported by Impact, and reason mobile unit E. Roll number 1039 010 010 06400 Scott Bryan for the period of February 21st to December 31st, 2020, as reported by Impact. Reason raised by fire, 357 1DI. And further, that council approve an adjustment of taxes to be calculated by the tax department for the related period. Any discussion, questions, comments? Anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried. Okay, motion moved by Tom Dewey, seconded by Bill McDonald. That council accept the revenue and expenditure budget to actual variance report for the period ending June 30th, 2020 for information. Any questions or comments on the numbers?
One comment.
Sure, go ahead, Michael.
Just wanted to apologize to council for that last column. The actual variance should read 2020 versus 2019. One of my level 1 skill level for FOW reporting, that's now updated to a higher level, but didn't go back and correct that apparently.
Okay. Okay, hearing no questions or comments, is there anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you. Okay, administration. Moved by Brent Cameron, seconded by Nikki Gowdy. Whereas the property owners have reviewed development potential for this property and has determined that it is not cost effective or practical for them to develop the land as a building lot. And whereas the owners have offered to donate the land to the municipality rather than undergoing the planning approvals costs involved to make the property a viable lot. And whereas township staff have reviewed the development limitations of the property and recommend that notwithstanding the current development limitations, the lot could have potential for township uses. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council agree in principle to receiving the donation of land from the current owners, and that the township cover reasonable legal expenses of the vendor, and if requested, issue a charitable donation receipt for the amount of the appraised value of the land, subject to any legal and accounting advice received. Discussion?
For you, Madam Mayor, I kind of have a question, a concern.
Sure, go ahead.
Is there any way, I don't like, it's a generous donation, don't get me wrong, but I just feel that, is there any way we can work with these people to try and help them so they get to stay? You don't want to discourage people from coming here.
Yeah, I think we have, but I'll let Cindy or Kathy speak to that.
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute there. Yeah, we have had pre-consultation meetings with the planning people. We have gone to the site to look at entrances and whatnot. And I think it's just a threshold issue with the landowner in terms of he's just not willing to put up the money that's required in order to make it work. There is definitely solutions, but they're too costly for him, and he doesn't want to take that risk. So unfortunately, like we have looked at various options, and he looked at road closings, he looked at license agreements, but given the curve of the road and the sight lines, he just felt that it was going to be too expensive to do what he needed to do to make it a viable building lot.
Okay. Yes, Bill.
Madam Mayor, I think it's an opportunity if they want to donate the municipality, it gives us some options in the future where conditions along the road may change. The road could be redesigned or whatever, but it would probably give us an asset that we could probably put up for sale at some future date to someone who's actually capable of doing the work that's needed to do. at a lesser cost. So I think it's probably, we should accept it and move forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, is there anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried. There are those certain pieces of properties that are just impossible to work with. Okay, we have a motion moved by Bill McDonald and seconded by Victor Hayes that council approve in principle the request for a license agreement from the applicant over the portion of the road allowance adjacent to the applicant's property for the purpose of allowing a dock to access Warren's Lake. And further, that a bylaw be passed at a later meeting to accept the agreement and to authorize the mayor and CAO clerk to execute the agreement on behalf of the township, subject to changes suggested by legal counsel. Now we have Mr. Lochner and we have Ryan on our video here. Do either of you want to speak to the motion? You've both submitted written documentation, which council has had in their package. Okay.
Yeah, I think if people have reviewed the letter, then I feel like that summarizes pretty much everything that we need to say.
Okay. Okay. Any questions or comments from council?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have a couple of things.
Okay.
First of all, I would like to ask to have a recorded vote on this.
Okay.
And second of all, my biggest concern is why do we keep making exceptions to the rules? We have rules, we have an official plan, we have bylaws. We called in an expert who said that it is a road allowance, and the rules say that nothing's to be built on a road allowance. We spend lots of money on making these rules happen, and I don't understand. I wish somebody could explain why we are asked by staff to make exceptions all the time.
Okay, Kathy or Cindy, do you want to respond to that?
With respect to road allowances, Councilor McGowney, it is up to council, and it's certainly council's just options as to allow for certain things like a dock, for instance. As you'll notice in the report, there also was some concern in regards to a fire pit being there, and we're asked for that certainly to be removed off the road allowance. The other thing is too, I think that we have entered into license agreements with a number of people that have things allowing them to build roads or access to get into their properties. So, I mean, it's not necessarily a precedent in the sense that we have allowed certain things to go forth, but it is council's certainly option. They can either decide, they can say yes, or they can say no. I think because where the dock is, and now that we've got further information, it's not a structure that's going to impede necessarily anybody's travel. I mean, where the fire pit is, if you look at that. So those were a couple things that we looked at and decided that we should have those certainly removed off the road allowance. So, but it is council's option. We have had license agreements in lots of areas for different reasons. So that's the reason why the staff certainly recommended that as well. Unless Cindy has anything more to add.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Your worship, it's Tom here. I'd just like to make a comment. I agree with Kathy. Over the years, we have made exceptions in certain situations with regards to road allowances and allowing access to properties. And I don't, this is not setting a precedent because there are already other situations where we've allowed it. And when you look at the whole situation, so we have to take that into consideration. So I support the motion to approve this.
Okay. Bill and then Andy.
Yes, Madam Mayor, through you. Just a question to Cindy. What my only concern regarding moving forward this agreement, will this limit the access by anyone else if this license agreement is in place? Does the road allowance still remain open as a public avenue for all other individuals that wish to use it? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
For you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor McDonald, it's an unopened road allowance, which technically is open unless it's closed, so it remains available and open to the public. It is, frankly, would be considered drowned land, so it's largely either very mucky or underwater, so the ability to travel on it is somewhat restricted and very limited, but it is technically open.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it's Victor here.
Yes, Victor, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the recommendation here that we have in section C, and I'm quoting our staff here by saying, the township has a tradition of granting reasonable requests of landowners to possibly use the road allowance for the general enjoyment of their property and or to encroach onto the road allowance where it is necessary to do so. So we've done this before. The precedent is that we do it. Now, there have been some objections, and I believe that the township has addressed these objections in the license agreement. So, and this license agreement is one of the most specific license agreements that I've seen. So I'm thinking, and there's also the option of rescinding this license agreement if things change. So I think we need to continue what we have been doing and allowing use of the road allowance for this passive use of the land and see what happens in the future. So I'm also in favor of this agreement.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Brent, just not a question, but an observation, because this has been an outstanding issue. I think it speaks to why we are steadily trying to divest ourselves of road allowances, because inevitably we end up becoming a party to disputes over property use and access. Ideally, I think the township needs to be a honest broker with everybody. We represent everyone, regardless of how much land you own or how long you've been around. We have to be an honest broker to everyone. And unfortunately, because road allowances, unused road allowances fall within our purview, we end up getting pulled into situations that, quite frankly, are very difficult to observe. So, this is case in point why I think it's a good move overall for us to try to find ways of divesting ourselves of road allowances where we have absolutely no expectation of developing a roadway in the future.
Good point. Good point. Okay, if there's nothing else, I will call the vote, and it's a recorded vote.
I would like to make a comment, Madam Mayor.
Sure. Sorry, Andy.
It's Andy here. Yeah, I've been out to the site several times. I have not been out there in the fall of the year when the water's low, but my observations is you would need hip waders to attempt to cross the road allowance from one side of Warren's Lake to the other. And as far as docks on the road allowance, if you travel down Clark Road, Road 38, Cannon Road, just to name a few, there are docks that are in a similar situation where you have a landowner on one side of the road allowance and their dock is in the lake on the other side of the road allowance. Whether or not they have permits or have permission to do that, I haven't looked into it, but it's not something that I'm overly concerned about. That's all I have to say.
Good point, Andy.
Thank you. Yes, over the years, we've had houses, garages, and septic systems put on road allowances. So we've, and just recently we had stairs and steps. Okay, I'm going to call the motion and I'm going to have a recorded vote. And the first is myself and I vote yes. Cindy Kelsey.
I vote no.
Okay. Bill McDonald,
Yes.
Cameron,
No.
Tom Dewey,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Nikki Dowdy,
No.
Elwin Burke.
No.
It's a tie vote. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. What happens? A tie vote is a lost vote, I believe.
Right.
Kathy,
Yes, you are correct.
what's that?
You are correct, Fran.
I can't hear
Can't
you.
hear you.
Can you hear me?
It's a tie vote. There's 4 yeses and 4
Or
noes.
no? So it's a loss, you're correct, it's lost.
So it's defeated.
Yes.
So what position does that put the whole dock in?
Basically, the dock would have to be removed off the road allowance.
Okay. So I guess a letter will go out then to the new owner and the Lochner's to let them know that this motion was defeated.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. That's too bad, but we'll have to move on. Okay. I have a motion
Council,
for,
is there not another vote that's supposed to be recorded?
pardon?
Is there not another vote that's supposed to be recorded?
No, that's the vote.
Council members, are there not?
Pardon? There's one council member missing, and that's Sherry Wan.
Can we not find a way to get her vote?
No, she has to be at the meeting.
I would ask for a deferral then until we can have the full council vote on this.
I'm sorry, the motion has been voted on and it's been defeated. Is
So
there an appeal that can be made, Kathy and Cindy?
Pardon?
Is there any sort of an appeal that can be made?
I am not aware of that, of there any appeal process.
No, and I'm not either.
No. I'm afraid that the dock is going to have to be removed.
Okay, well, we'll be looking at if there's any other processes that we can go forward to, because I find that this is incredibly unfair.
Incredibly unfair. John, speak. It's okay.
Okay, yes.
After that conversation, how you can come to that conclusion.
Unfortunately, council has ruled that it's not going to be allowed, so we're going to have to remove the dock. Okay, now we have to move on to our next item on the agenda. Is committees and reports. Moved by Brent and seconded by Elwin, that council received the minutes from the Economic Development Committee meeting held February the 7th, 2020 for information. Any discussion? All those in, or is there anyone voting no? Motion's carried. Okay, moved by Victor and seconded by Nikki, that council received for information the email from Rideau Valley Conservation Authority regarding its board meeting minutes, May 28th, 2020. Any discussion? Anybody voting no? Motion's carried. Okay, moved by Nikki and seconded by Cindy, that council received the Quinte Conservation Authority June 18th, 2020 agenda and minutes for information. Discussion? All those in, or anybody voting no? Motion's carried. Okay, moved by Cindy and seconded by Bill. The council received oh, we got a presentation now. We have Robert Auger with us from the Director of the Fire Underwriters Survey.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I saw you earlier, Robert. Welcome. We can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Let me know when you want me to get started, and I'll start going through the slides. Are we going to be using your slides, or am I supposed to share my content?
I think Cindy will share the slides we have.
Okay,
Cindy,
perfect.
is that right?
Yes, can everyone see the slides on the screen?
Not yet.
Okay, just a second here. They're on the right-hand side. It's on the screen share.
I can see them.
Okay. Fran, if you move over all of your video people, then you can see them. Okay.
I'll see them on my phone.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to say thank you for having me here. It's great to attend the council meeting. I mean, things are a little bit different in the world, but this is good. This works for me. So I'll give you a brief history of Fire Underwriter Survey, why we exist, and kind of our role in the insurance industry, and you know, obviously its relevance to your township. So Fire Underwriter Survey was started in 1983. Based off of large loss fires in New York, Chicago, Boston, Toronto, Great Fire of Vancouver in 1906. So as you can see, large metropolitan cities at this time were impacted by large conflagration fires. Now, you know, I think it's important to understand that at this time as well, there's no building codes, there's no water distribution systems, no sprinkler systems, no fire codes. Any type of fire suppression is kind of community oriented, very little in regards to organized fire protection. So underwriters at the time were going bankrupt, and insurance companies were going bankrupt because they were undercutting and you know, similar to the brokering system where, you know, at the time they had drummers and runners that would go from company to company and try to compete with pricing. And what happened was these large conflagration fires, which, you know, an example of one is Toronto in 1904, wiped out, you know, 6% of the building stock. So the whole city had to be rebuilt, and the insurance industry, a lot of the companies went bankrupt. So fire at the time was the #1 peril. If we can scroll down a little bit, I'll give you some terms of reference. So fire was the #1 peril in regards to insurance at that time. Obviously, it's changed over the years and decades, but there were two main lines of insurance in Canada. The first is commercial lines insurance, which is public fire protection classification. The second is dwelling or personal lines insurance, which is dictated by the dwelling protection grade. So by and large, the public fire protection classification is mostly used in urban situations and suburban communities where there is significant amount of valuable property. So we'll say commercial properties, industrial corners of the community, as well as you know, just high value property. So this grade is used to determine base rates on property insurance for commercial property. It's a large system. It's made of 1 to 10, with 1 being the best grade and 10 being essentially no level of fire protection. Typically speaking, public fire protection classifications, commercial lines of insurance are limited to 5 kilometers by road travel distance. And then the dwelling protection grade is a grade of 1 to 5. It's really a derivative of the public fire protection classification in the sense that you first determine the public fire protection classification and then look to establish the dwelling protection grade for personal lines insurance. So, you know, for Central Frontenac, by and large, what we're looking at is a, you know, cottage country kind of a community, very rural. You know, you obviously have your various hubs of and centers, commercial hubs within the community. But by and large, we're talking about you know, cottage and rural property. So dwelling protection grade is more pertinent to your constituency, I would say. If we continue to go down, we can see that the breakdown of the commercial grade is just this. It's a system of 5,000 points. The fire department makes up 40% of those points. So at the top right corner, we have 19 items that are related to fire insurance classifications and the scoring of the fire department. And obviously, you can see some categories carry more weight than others, and that's because it's a grading schedule and it's used to determine high probability of loss ratio. We've done a number of studies, and the PFPC calculation indicates for the insurers, that is, the better the grade, the less property damage. In a situation where we can collect claims or analyze claims and determine how much of and quantify how much better fire protection can impact on property damage losses. And if we continue to scroll down, I can get right into the dwelling protection grade, which is mostly related to your community, because you have, by and large, residential dwellings scattered throughout the community, and that's probably your number one level of risk. That's generally speaking what we're going to find in Central Frontenac with regards to what the insurers are underwriting as a majority. So as you can see, the different levels of grading have a different requirements, and these are basic requirements. So I'll give you the requirements for dwelling protection grade 1. It's typically a career station. So by virtue, that means that you have 4 career firefighters on duty 24/7, 365 days a year. As well, there should be a municipal type water system that can score at least 50%. So obviously, there is a significant amount of investment on a municipal side with relation to achieving a dwelling protection grade. Typically speaking, when talking about career fire departments, each station for staffing, apparatus, and operational costs, we're looking at $2.4 to $2.6 million. So, this information is important to communities because as you develop and look at your service to optimize it, you want to kind of find the sweet spot in regards to where you're going to collect taxes, what kind of service you should have. And a lot of times as a national program, Fire and Rate Survey is used by many municipalities to determine what level of service they kind of fall within. So in saying that, the community is significantly rural. There may be some areas where you do have water distribution systems, but by and large, you'd probably be looking at a grade 3BS as kind of your top end, what you would want to establish, or kind of a point of return. And that indicates that what you would be looking at is superior tanker shuttle accreditation. And that's the ability for the fire service to utilize tankers and pumpers and catch basins to deliver water to the scene, as opposed to hydrant systems providing water at the scene. So this is an alternative means of water supply, and the insurance industry recognizes that in rural settings. So they do allow for a decrease in premiums. So, from the tops to the bottom, there's basically in our analysis a 60% decrease from going protected to unprotected. So if you had a career station and you had a fully hydranted system and that meet all the criteria, and you removed that from the municipality, your constituency would basically, their insurance policies would go up 60 to 50%, maybe even more in some cases. So a lot of times municipalities want to find out what the sweet spot is with regards to the community. So if we continue to scroll down. So one of the things that we've developed in the last couple of years, and this is a picture of the municipal portal. So this is actually the grading index. This is the mapping system. We utilize GIS, so that's Geographical Information Systems. The underwriting community, so the insurance industry, goes into our portal. Our business model is such that we have subscriptions with insurance companies. They subscribe to our data on an annual basis. Contracts are generally speaking 3-year contracts, where they're accessing the information in the grading system. And we overlay the data so that they can use it to determine their fire insurance classifications and premiums that they want to collect from various constituencies or property owners. Now, this is based off the level of fire protection and our rating schedule, and the insurers consume the data in different ways. So we do have a web service where we connect right into their software, their underwriting software. So they would, get a call from a constituent, and the constituent would tell them their address and some information about their building. they would type in the address either in Fire Underwriter Survey Grading Index or their own underwriting software that would be fed by our database essentially, and that would result in them getting the grade. So this is just an example of your grades currently and what information we have if you want to scroll down.
Okay, any questions or comments for Robert?
The next slide actually is just the municipal portal. So this is something we developed in the last couple years, and it allows municipal officials and fire chiefs to actually access their information. So if you were to close a station, open a station, employ new firefighters, move to a different service of fire protection, you would want that investment notified and recognized within the insurance industry. So what we've done is we've moved to more of a digital era where municipalities can access their information, they can access the data that populates their grades, and they can review it to see what's changed and update us on any of the details that have changed. And this is the ability for communities to access their information. And as a further date, we're going to be adding statistical analysis and comparative data from one community to the next to allow you to look at various features of fire protection that maybe you're considering in your community. I want to know how other communities of similar size and demographic meet or how they address those fire protection concerns or investments. So yeah, I think we can probably take some questions.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
I should just actually start with the mandate actually. So our mandate, we do provide consulting services, but our mandate is to provide an updated grade for every address in Canada that accurately reflects the possibility of severe loss and availability of local fire suppression. So the grading schedule is designed to provide insurers with information related to property insurance.
Okay, I have a motion by Cindy and by Bill that council received the presentation from Robert Agar, Director of the Fire Underwriters Survey for information. Questions or comments? Thank you very much, Robert. Very informative.
Okay, perfect.
It's good to know that those stats are being kept.
Yes, and I do encourage the community as you continue to make progress in your fire service delivery that you can update us and ask questions as you move forward. I mean, times are certainly challenging, and communities, at some point are going to be making decisions about how they're going to direct their services in the future. And what I would say is there is an impact on the decisions you make with how many fire stations you have, where you locate them, how you staff them. The training programs you provide to firefighters, as well as the apparatus and those kinds of things. So this is a very general presentation, but if the community does want more information, we'll always go.
Right. Okay, thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried. Okay, great. We have a motion moved by Brent and seconded by Victor that council receive the following correspondence for information, and it's 1 to 7 that's in your package. Any questions or comments from anyone? Is there anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried. Okay, let's see what we are here. Correspondence requiring action. We have one moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Tom Dewey. The province reaffirmed its commitment to continue its cost-sharing funding arrangements with municipalities to support high-priority repairs to Conservation Authority's infrastructure in its March 2020 Ontario flooding strategy. And whereas the province allocated $5 million annually for this purpose in 2003 and has not increased or indexed the funding envelope in 17 years. And whereas demand for replacement and upgrade of water and erosion control assets is ever increasing due to aging infrastructure and the impacts of climate change. And whereas critical infrastructure within the Mississippi Valley watershed that serves this municipality did not receive funding this year, and there are no guarantees that it will in the foreseeable future based upon current program demand. And whereas should funding not be received from the province for these and other MVCA capital projects, the burden of those costs will fall in part to this municipality. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the CAO be directed to draft a letter on behalf of council for submission to the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, supporting the letter from MVCA and requesting that funding of the Water and Erosion Control Infrastructure, WECI program, be significantly increased and that the program rules be adjusted to allow for reasonable construction periods and the carryover of funds between fiscal years. Discussion? Bill?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, I just support this action we're taking here, because if in actual fact funding for the water control structures gets cut, places like North Frontenac, which has a huge number of those controls or dams, whatever you want to call them, if that cost of maintaining those falls on the shoulders of the local municipalities, the cost of the Conservation Authority on our local tax bills will increase dramatically, because some of these dams are really quite old and are going to be needing repairs in the next short time period. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak to this? Who's on Mississippi Valley? Elwin?
Yes.
Do you want to speak to this motion?
Well, I don't think there's anything more to say. Bill McDonald has just told us if I saw these dams myself, and a lot of them are not in very good shape. So if we don't get money, there will be some serious problems for the township.
Okay, and it's going to need mega bucks, I would think, as well.
Yes.
Okay, if there's no other further discussion, is there anyone voting no to the motion? Motion's carried. Okay, at this point, we have a public meeting coming up, and if we could just take a 5-minute recess until we get everyone who wants to speak to the public meeting road closure and easement, so that they're on the line and ready to go. Cindy, you're going to be dealing with that while we have a quick bathroom break?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So 5 minutes.